Okay, I want to welcome you to another great score Boston presentation, Terrible Talks and Better Public Speaking with Barbie Carlton from innovationwomen.com. And we're just thrilled to have her dynamic speaker. You're going to very much enjoy today's presentation. But before we get started with her, we want to make sure that you're taking advantage of all the wonderful things that SCORE offers. Our goal at SCORE is to offer you small business education and information. We do that in a couple different ways. SCORE.org website has previously recorded webinars, it has blogs, it has podcasts, it has just articles, it has templates that you can download, lots of great information to dig through. We also offer education through our workshops and our webinars. And we advertise those via social media, on our newsletters, and they, of course, are listed on our website as well. The most important thing that SCORE does, however, is mentoring. Our mentors are volunteers. They have a variety of skill sets and experiences that they've learned from that they want to share with you. They want to work with folks at all stages of the small business journey, whether you're trying to decide if ownership is right for you, if you're in the planning phase, if you're in your business, growing your business, and exiting your business. We can work with you. A beginning session, they're going to want to learn about you, what your goals are, what your challenges are, and they're going to work with you to come up with a plan so that you can be successful. It's not uncommon that co-mentors will be brought in during your journey, or you'll be referred forward to other mentors just to make sure that you're getting everything you need. So, next question. How do you get a mentor? There are actually multiple ways. One of them on the score.org website would be let us do the matching for you. You can just, it's the easiest. Put in your zip code. It matches you to the chapter that's nearest you. And there's a little form that pops up. I want to know what your business is and how we can help you currently. And that will allow us to match you to the most appropriate mentor. We are going to be I like Q&A for questions for the presenter that you want read out, but we're going to definitely be doing interactions through chat today. So I'll be watching both. And we are recording. I will post that recording in 24 to 48 hours on the score.org/Boston. From the graphic, you can see if you go to the local workshops on the blue bar and hit that little pull down, there you'll find the previously recorded webinars, and that's where this will be posted today. So I'm going to stop my share, and I'm going to give it over to Bobbie Carlton.
Excellent, and welcome everyone. And I'm going to share my screen. And today we're going to talk about how to make your talks, your public speaking, better. Just want to let everybody know that this particular presentation has a nickname. We call it Terrible Talks. And I'm just hoping it's not terrible for you. I want you to think like somebody who is sitting in the audience watching a presentation, and this should be relatively easy for you. And I'm hoping that right now you're not bored. But I will say that a lot of times we sit in presentations where we are bored and the presentation is boring. And your immediate thought is, when will this presentation be done? Or maybe you're in a presentation where everything is kind of abstract, like you're not sure what the speaker is thinking, is speaking about, and it's all a little bit confusing. It's a little bit out there for you. Now, when we get these kinds of presentations, we get annoyed, right? We are absolutely perturbed and annoyed because we are wasting our precious time. As an entrepreneur, your most precious asset is your own time. And you just sat through a presentation and you are annoyed because you wasted your precious time on it. You could be doing something much better with your time. Now, as a speaker, there are signs. that your presentation is boring, your audience is annoyed, everything's a little too abstract for them, and that sign is the audience is departing. There are times when the audience leaves, it's not your fault. Somebody pulls the fire alarm, somebody's got a phone call or a meeting. But there are times where you're giving a presentation and you're watching the audience depart. This is what we call bad presentations. And yes, there will be a large number of sheep puns during this presentation. Boring, annoying, abstract, the audience is departing, you have a bad presentation. Hi there. My name is Bobbie Carlton. I'm the founder of 3 different companies. My day job is I run a PR and marketing firm. My night job for many years was something called Mass Innovation Nights. It was a monthly new product launch event in Boston that ran for 11 years. And my dream job is Innovation Women. Innovation Women is an online speaker platform. It's designed to get more women on stage at conferences and events. And I'm not just the founder of Innovation Women, I'm also a speaker myself. I've done a TEDx talk and I've spoken at some cool places, including the United Nations. And I will say, if you go and look up my TEDx talk, be kind. I only had 3 days' notice. I'm going to talk to us today about what makes a presentation bad. Number one, when you get a presentation that is colorless, that is humorless, I think one thing that we need to think about as speakers is we are not just speakers, we are not just educators, we are also entertainers. People like to be entertained, and humor makes things more memorable. So if you cannot grab the audience by the lapels and make them watch you, you've got to do something that attracts their interest. And making things colorful, giving it a sense of humor, that absolutely helps. Number two, we use too much jargon. Now, picture this. I am a shepherd or a farmer who has sheep, and I use all kinds of jargon in my presentation. If I am the only person that by the end of the presentation knows the difference between smit marks and rattle paint, I have failed as a speaker. Not only that, but when I use jargon that my audience doesn't understand and I don't define it for them, they have no ability to share my information with others. So, in addition to making it less memorable and less understandable, I am also making it less viral. And just so everybody here walks out the door knowing the difference between smit marks and rattle paint, smit marks are a mark that you put on your sheep so that you can identify them. In this particular case, you'll notice all the sheep have been spray painted with green. Rattle paint is about expanding your flock. You put paint on the ram, and the ewes, that's the female sheep, get paint on them too, so you know which of those sheep are going to be producing baby sheep. All right, everybody understand the jargon today? Good job. If you are giving a presentation, you need to define your jargon as well. Another problem for a lot of people is they try to make too many points. Now, when I am giving a presentation, I try to put only in a few different points for each presentation. When you're doing a TEDx talk, for example, one of the reasons that TEDx is so successful is they really focus the speakers on making one big point, not too many points. When you're trying to make too many points, and by the way, there's a term for this, we call it cramming. You're trying to force too much into your presentation. People can't comprehend that much. you're trying to move too quickly. It really just isn't effective. You want to try and create something that is smaller and more focused. That way, your audience can get something out of it. Our next point is you've got too much detail and not enough value. So when you're a presenter and you've got all of this information, you need to actually do some work to help people understand what those points mean. If you're giving people information that isn't actionable, if there are no clear objectives in your presentation, this is also a problem. When you are applying for speaking opportunities, a lot of conferences and events put out what they call a call for speakers. Often those forms that you're filling out will include something called takeaways, or another term that you'll see a lot of times is learnings. What will the audience learn? What will they be able to do with the information that you have given them? When you are starting to put together a presentation, think about what the audience needs to learn, and then you will be able to build a presentation on top of that foundation. So if you're offering presentations where people walk out the door and go, that was interesting, but I don't know what I can do with it, you're really failing as a speaker, and you really have to think about what those objectives are and what is actionable. Now, sometimes it's not the content, it's the speaker. There is what we tend to think of as the sleepy speaker. No highs, no lows. It's just a monotone. This is a boring speaker. And if you're not excited about your content, if you can't get excited enough to have a presentation that sparkles, find a topic and a presentation that you can get excited about. Because if you're not excited about it, the audience is not going to be excited about it. There's also a problem with the speedy speaker. People are trying to cram too much in. Often they speak a lot real quickly. It's hard to follow, right? So this is not a race. Pauses are power. When you are pausing, when you're speaking on stage, you're giving your audience the opportunity to actually comprehend what it is you're saying, to consider it. If you're trying to cram too much in, you're probably losing people along the way. If you've ever seen a presentation where the speaker comes out on stage and they say, oh, I have all of this information, all of these things to tell you, but I only have 20 minutes, so we're going to zoom through this. Ugh, be prepared. It's really hard as an audience to follow somebody like that. And if you're the speaker in that type of situation, often what you want to do is think about how you can give people more information that they can access later, not immediately. The next section, and the thing that we worry a lot about, is when the speaker is self-serving. I'm sure you've all seen presentations that feel more like sales pitches than presentation. As a speaker, you are performing an act of service to the audience, not to yourself. Think about it this way. If I spend a lot of time saying I, what does that do for the audience? As a speaker, you want to focus on you. And yep, another little sheep pun for you. You is so much more important for the audience to hear than I. So as you're putting together your presentations, think about you versus I. Now, better talks. Let's talk about how we can put together a presentation. Better presentations. This is a Venn diagram that really talks about the 3 areas when you're putting together a presentation. Number 1, What is your area of expertise? And again, what are you passionate about? What can you get excited about? That's in the first circle. In the second circle, it's your brand. How do you want people to know you? And I want to tell you a story about this. Remember earlier, I said I had done a TEDx talk with only 3 days' notice? Well, a few years ago, 2019 to be exact, I got a phone call from some students at Suffolk University. It was the committee that was putting together a TEDx presentation. And they called me and said, "Hey, we want you to be a speaker at our TEDx." And of course, I run a speakers bureau. I'm a speaker. A TEDx is such a great opportunity. Of course, I'd love to. I'm so excited. Oh my goodness. Yes, absolutely. When is it? This was a Thursday, by the way. It's Tuesday. No, 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 no. If you know anything about TEDx presentations, some people work on them for months, generally 3 to 6 months. You get feedback, you get coaching, people weigh in on every aspect of your TEDx presentation. It's one of the reasons that TED and TEDx are so well known and so well regarded. You're not going to do one in 5 days. Well, the good news is I run a speakers bureau. I have 3,000 speakers who are probably all better than me anyway. And I said, you know what? I can't do this. It would be career suicide. I am going to find you a speaker, though. Don't worry about it. I came back. There were 5 people crazy enough to want to do a TEDx with only 5 days' notice. I presented to the committee, and they said, no, we need you. Why do you need me? And they said, well, our theme is innovation. You founded Innovation Nights. You founded Innovation Women. This is Boston. You are Boston's innovation queen. We need you. This is your brand. In the end, I ended up agreeing and kind of against my better judgment did that TEDx. I'm going to say I'm not horribly embarrassed by it, but boy, I could have done a better job with 3 to 6 months of practice. But it really speaks to the power of a brand. When you're in a room and people speak your name because they know who you are, we call it being the one speaker that everybody immediately thinks of when a topic or a theme comes up. When you are putting together your presentations, expertise is important, passion is important too, but how do you want to be known? And then the next area is, of course, the audience needs. Where can you solve the audience's problems or their pain? So, when you get all of these things overlapping, that is when you've got a great opportunity to put together a better presentation. The next step is really getting to know your audience. Who is in that audience? You want to think about how you can ask the organizers questions. Who's going to be in the audience? What are the problems that they are trying to solve? This is how you can put together a great presentation because, again, you are solving their problems, solving their pain. What's a great way to get to know your audience? Look at the website for the event or the conference. And this is a little tidbit, a little secret knowledge. One of the best places to get to know your audience is in the sponsor's information. Lots of big conferences will put together a package of information where they are pitching the sponsors. If you go and look in that information, they will often give you demographic information, they'll tell you titles, they'll give you a sense of the size of the audience. Lots of really good information is hiding out in that sponsor package. Again, we are going to solve the audience's problems. We're going to stop their pain. When you start preparing your presentations, start with the problems the audience needs solved. Why did they show up in your session? What attracted them to your session? One thing to do is really think about how you can find a proxy for the people who are in the audience. And you can ask them questions. What keeps them up at night? Where do they have a problem that you could potentially solve? And ask them, does this presentation ring true for you? Is this something that if I gave this presentation, you would want to go and see? All right, next step. I want you to think about how you can tap into something that's a little counterintuitive, a little surprising. So here's a little sheep fact that you might not know. Lots and lots of people think of sheep as not particularly intelligent. They're very stereotypically portrayed as slow, not particularly smart. However, research has shown that sheep have an absolutely incredible memory for faces. Like they can remember people for years. So, what I've got there is a commonly accepted belief and then something entirely different. Why am I telling you about sheep and face memory? I'm trying to give you something that will surprise you. It will hook you in. When you're giving a presentation, if your audience knows the ending to that story, you've lost them. That's when they pick up their phone and they start doing their email. If you tell them something counterintuitive, something surprising, you've gathered their attention back. I often talk about this as the moment where people are nodding off, or maybe they're pulling out their phone to do their email, or they're just writing something down. If you can get a point worked into your presentation where people grab their note paper and their pen and they're frantically writing notes, aha, you've got them. You've snagged them, you've hooked them, you've brought them back to paying attention to you, and they will learn more and they will retain more. Always give your stories a twist. People tune out when you deliver what they expect. Now, better talks, some of that implementation. One of the things is, I will tell you, in the technology world, if there was a trophy that was given out for boring and not well done talks, like the technology industry should probably be clearing its shelf off. Like we are bad. We are so bad. What can we do, especially when we're presenting information like data? We need to do a better job of sharing those ideas well. So, a lot of times, you've probably seen people giving presentations actually showing, I kid you not, Excel spreadsheet files on a screen. So much data, so little information. I want you to focus on the meaning. Only one big point per slide, and you can highlight crucial points. Utilize the tools that we're given when we're putting together slides. All right, so too much information, people don't understand it. You really want to help them by understanding where the important parts are. Make your talk more fun. You don't have to go full sheep mode like I did, but there are different ways that you can make your talks more interesting, more fun. For example, have you thought about gamification? One thing I've done in the past is I've actually divided audiences into two different teams and had competitions. There are activities that you can do when you're giving a presentation. maybe even putting up a leaderboard or a scoreboard. How about bingo cards? Every time I say the word so, which by the way is my filler word, lots of people have filler words. That's mine. You can actually give people a check mark, like give me at the end the number of times I said so. Maybe you want to do things like giveaways or just engaging the audience. When we're doing presentations virtually, there are polls, there are surveys. And yes, you can do a little bit of the jokes and the puns. You don't have to be a stand up comedian. Even something little will help your audience pay attention and retain more. I'm also going to show you a little trick. We call this the rule of three. The rule of three works in writing and it works in presentations. When you're putting together slides, you may have heard don't put more than 3 things on a slide or more than 3 bullets. This is the rule of three. People remember things in groups of 3. 3 is always more fun, more humorous, more memorable, and more effective. Audiences can remember things in groups of 3. And you probably can think of some great examples of the rule of 3. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Rule of 3. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. Friends, Romans, countrymen. Larry, Moe, Shemp. Now, I bet you all thought I was going to say Curly, right? Nope, you got to surprise people. Remember we saw earlier the little twist, the little surprise? But rule of 3 helps your audience remember. Now, I will admit I'm not the best speaker in the world. I'm also not the worst, but there's lots of advice out there that I want you to just ignore about public speaking. These are 3, I call them meh, common speaking tips. Number 1, introduce yourself to the audience immediately. Nope. You'll notice when I introduced myself, I had already grabbed your attention with something a little bit unusual, pictures of sheep. I had already started the conversation. When you come out on stage, whether it's a virtual stage or an in-person stage, that is the moment that you have the most attention from your audience. That is the moment that that audience's attention is yours to grab or to lose. And especially if you've already been introduced and the audience has applauded for you and the host has walked away, they're excited for you. They are excited to hear what you have to say. Going into your job history and your life story at that moment, and the interest wanes. Another not so hot speaking tips, start with a joke. I got to say, I think I'm hysterical. My kids, not so much. And I don't think any of us are really, let's just say, comedians. We're speakers, we're business people. We are trying to convey an idea or a thought. Trying to force fit a joke into that opening, it just doesn't work that well. Unless you're a professional comedian, then have at it. The next one that I hear all the time is if you're nervous, if you feel that you might have, a problem getting on stage, picture your audience in their underwear. Oh my goodness. I don't know about you, but I think that would, number 1, be distracting and also very uncomfortable. And I really don't want to make myself more uncomfortable. There are all kinds of great ways to make yourself more comfortable on stage. Throw that idea right out the window. I want you to start small. I want you to think about perhaps asking a question. Next time you're in the audience, whether again it's virtual or online, you can ask a question when the speaker says, I'm done, and now are there any questions? If it's in a physical location, if you're seeing an in-person speaker, this is your opportunity. Stand up, introduce yourself, and then ask your question. Congratulations, you are now a public speaker. You've dipped a toe in the water in a way that is easy, it is low risk. You didn't have to put together any kind of presentation, you didn't have to apply to speak. And the more you do this, the more you stand up, speak to an audience, and you are speaking to the exact same audience that the speakers on stage spoke to. This gives you an opportunity to feel more comfortable, to get those nerves out of the way in a very low pressure way. So start off small and then keep practicing. Almost every speaker gets nervous before they get on stage. The more you practice, though, the less that will be an issue for you. Better speaking tips. No more meh speaking tips. Number one, your job as a speaker, the first thing is actually be likable. People want you to succeed. They want to like you. If you come on stage and harangue your audience, you're not going to be capturing people's attention. I once had a speaker trainer who came in to an audience that I had pulled together, and he was unfortunately so unlikable. He did a presentation about all the problems that people have with their presentations, much like this one, but he did it in such a way that it was accusatory. And I think he lost people's attention primarily because he just wasn't here for them. He was here for himself. And he came off as so arrogant, nobody wanted to work with him. So, number one job as a speaker, be likable. Number two, tell me a story. All of this information, really, storytelling is a great way for you to communicate and connect with your audiences. Doesn't have to be big stories, it can be little stories. The story I told you earlier about the TEDx opportunity I had, it illustrates a point, but it also gives the audience a little bit about you. Next one, get excited. Get excited about what it is you are telling people. You have to be excited about your topic before anybody else can be excited. Next one, lose the words. If your audience is reading everything on the screen, whether it's again virtual or in person, they're not paying attention to you. You don't necessarily need words on the screen. Now, throughout this presentation, yes, I have absolutely had words on the screen. I'm teaching something, and different people learn in different ways. Some people learn by reading, some people learn by hearing, some people learn by visualizing and seeing things. But a lot of times when you're giving a presentation, you'll see slides just crammed with words, and there's a lot going on behind the speaker. The speaker is speaking, and the audience is reading the slide. There's a secondary problem with this as well. That secondary problem is if there are so many words on the screen, I, as the speaker, am likely to be reading from the slide. That means that I don't know my material well enough to give it without there being that material in front of me. And nobody is there to hear you read the slide. Number one, they can probably read for themselves. And number two, they're there to see you speak. So fewer words on the slides, and rehearse. I don't know about you. I have a little magic number. I am more comfortable giving presentations when I have gone through them between 6 and 8 times. I have gone through the slides. I have rehearsed the words that I'm going to use. And I'm not just finishing up these slides 10 minutes before I step on stage. Get comfortable with your material. One of the things that you'll find when you are well rehearsed and you really know your material is often you will have whole phrases that you say exactly the same way each time you present. You're very comfortable with that phrasing. One of the reasons you're comfortable with that phrasing is you may have deleted some words that you stumble over. So you've gotten to a really nice, comfortable phrase or paragraph that you're using each and every time. I'm going to point back to my introduction slides as an example of this. When I talk about the fact that I own 5 different companies, I talk about having a day job, a night job, and a dream job. By the way, rule of 3, and you'll notice I had a little addendum. Because I wanted to stick with the rule of 3, my 4th company and 5th company, admittedly, not companies I founded, companies I bought, but I add them in almost as a separate item. So I've got day job, night job, dream job, 3 companies, and I've got 2 additional companies. And that phrasing is something that I've said so many times that I'm very comfortable saying it. And I don't have to be memorizing a whole big bunch of things. It just falls out of my mouth because I've said it so many times. And as a speaker, I want you to do one thing. Always be learning. Every time you do a presentation, you want to think about what you can do that's new, that's different, that you can experiment with. And every time you see a presentation, you always want to think about what that speaker did that might be something that you can incorporate, or what did that speaker do that you don't want to do? Maybe it didn't work for them, or you say, hey, you know what? That's not me. That doesn't feel true to me. I would never do it that way. So you want to be yourself on stage, but you also want to go to school and go to school on what other people are doing as speakers. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I run something called Innovation Women, which is a speakers bureau where I have 3,000 speakers who are all better than I am. And yet I'm the founder of the company and I do speaking too. So, as a speaker and as a business person, this is a lesson that I want to share with you as well. Always have a way for your audience to get in touch with you later on, or for you to get in touch with your audience. You want to incorporate this into your presentations, and you want to give people a reason to help you out. In my case, I'm always looking for feedback. How can I make my presentations better? Because I always want to be learning. So, if you want to give me some feedback, this is how you can do that. You can pull out your phone, you can scan the QR code, you can take a picture of it, or you can go to talk.ac/Bobbie Carlton, and you want to put in the word drive when you're prompted. This is how I can potentially connect with my audience later on. An important part of being a business person and a speaker. All right. Now, remember earlier I said one of the great ways that you can become a practice speaker and get extra bonus practice dipping your toe in the water? It's the point in time where you ask questions. So this is your opportunity to ask questions and to practice being a speaker. So I'm going to
Okay.
stop sharing. Hello.
Hi, I do have some questions. I'm going to be reading them out though for you.
Excellent.
Okay, if you shouldn't read a slide during a presentation, how do you handle quotes that provide data or support your premise?
Got it. And a lot of people will put up quotes. Um, I want to do a side note on the use of quotes on slides when you're a speaker. Just make sure they're not AI generated and something that's completely made up. There are also some fantastic websites that will help you dive into who really said that. I have seen so many speakers get derailed from the audience level when they put up a quote and they attribute it to the wrong person because they found something online. So, if you have a quote up on the screen, your audience can read that as well, just as well as you can. All right. So, if you want to quote Oprah or Dolly Parton or I don't know, Reese Witherspoon, Maya Angelou. That's another one that a lot of people put quotes up when they're speakers. You can have that quote, you can attribute it, and you can talk what I call around the quote. This is why this quote is meaningful. They can read it themselves, but you don't have to do that.
Okay, how do you engage the learners who are kinetic?
Good question. Um, not my best area because a lot of times I'm doing these presentations virtually. But for a lot of people, kinetic actually is movement for anybody who doesn't know it. And I'm often giving motions when I'm speaking. I find that actually kinetic learners will sometimes mirror me, which I thought was really interesting. I have seen actually when I'm doing presentations and when people are on screens, when it's a meeting versus a webinar, that there's some mirroring that happens. And you can actually encourage that by telling people, I want you to raise your hands. I want to put things over here. Think about this over here. Think about this over there. You can categorize things by the points of a compass. Just even moving hands helps kinetic learners really engage with your material.
Okay, this one's not a question, but a comment, but I think it's worth reinforcing. I love Bobbie's use of images and her avoidance of putting lots of words on the slides. Makes it so much easier to listen to her words versus reading dense content.
Thank you.
So,
I will
uh,
also say I am not a designer. I do have designers who work for me, and they often kind of sigh at my, let's just say, less cluttered slides because they could make them so much prettier.
when public speaking, how do you recover the public attention after losing the words that you wanted to say and simply can't find them due to anxiety?
So, one of the things about speaking is the time on stage is different than the time in the audience. So, when you are speaking, pauses are power, and they will often feel much more elongated when you're on the stage than you are in the audience. The audience is taking things in, they're absorbing. They need a little bit of extra time. You already know what you're going to say. So, if you lose track of things, if you kind of come to a standstill, take a drink. The audience appreciates, so sometimes as a speaker, you need a drink. They might get distracted by your giant jug, or it gives them a moment to think as well. And it gives you a moment to recover where you were and then keep moving. Pauses keep people's attention. And if you sound like you're pausing deliberately, you can even say, just a moment. And the audience, like for them, it was a millisecond. For me, that felt like a long, long time it took for me to reach for my jug, take a drink, and put it back. But it does give you enough time to think. So take a pause deliberately, take a drink, and then move on.
Okay. Outstanding talk. Well done. I have attended many workshops and webinars. This is by far one of the best.
Oh,
Good ideas, good examples, and interesting. You model what you teach. What do you think of giving about giving out a handout before or after a presentation?
I love giving handouts afterwards. I don't think audiences need something that is going to distract them. And sometimes people will give out slides with notes so people can take notes. I'm not a huge fan of that. Number one, I don't like giving out my slides. It it feels a little weird. If you want to give out a handout based on the presentation ideas, great, more power to you. Don't give out your slides. Like, there's no reason for somebody to have your exact slides. Seriously, no reason whatsoever. When you are capturing leads as part of a business process, when your speaking is a lead capture thing for your business, offering people the ability to download a handout later is one way that you can stay connected with your audience. So I'm a big fan of that, obviously, because that makes a difference for you as a presenter, as somebody who is also running a business.
Which speaker do you admire most and why? What do they specifically do that makes them successful?
Um, as somebody who runs a speakers bureau with 3,000 speakers, this is like asking me which speaker is like my favorite child. This is dangerous territory, but I will say that I'm always impressed by people who can actually create a business out of their speaking. And what I mean by that is you do have a lot of speakers who create their own stages. You know, you look at people like Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins has put together tours and, sells out big theaters. She has a podcast, she has books. Like, she has put together a whole business around speaking. So I like to see people who do that. I also like to see people who look like they're enjoying like what they do. I see a lot of speakers who look not happy about their speaking. I want to see somebody who is enjoying what they do. I want to see somebody with a big idea, something that really like gets my mental juices going. Like, oh, I never thought of it that way. That's the speaker I love to see. Like, those are the people that I want to go back and see with the hope that they are giving me new ideas. So it's not always like a single person that gets me excited. It's often the different attributes of speaking.
What is the most common mistake you see a speaker make?
I'm going to call this the one Google search deep. When we talk about giving ideas out and sharing ideas as a speaker, often people feel the need to dumb it down. They feel the need to zero in on an idea, and it's not a big idea. It's the same idea that I could go and look up very easily on Google, you know, how to make more money, how to live a great life. And they give platitudes. Anytime I see a presentation that feels like they scraped it off the internet, I'm disappointed. I can go and search on Google quite well myself. Give me stories that are uniquely yours and give me a way of looking at the world that's different, not the same thing that everybody else is sharing.
I also have a couple people that have asked if you offer lessons or private sessions.
I do, but I'm going to tell you, I'm expensive and I usually push people toward Innovation Women because we offer all that stuff there and it's not expensive as me.
Oh, I've got a question for you you've never had, I bet. What are three foods you stay away from that trigger a bad performance speaking?
Well, for me personally, I'm deathly allergic to tree nuts, so not being able to breathe and dying would probably keep me off stage. Um, the food one, that's interesting. I think that, you know, ice water. I know it sounds weird, but ice water is something that you don't want when you go out on stage because it actually constricts your vocal cords. So you always want to have room temperature or warm water. And, I've got my mug here with my beverage of choice, i.e. coffee, but tea, hot tea, even just hot water, being careful not to burn your mouth is also a really good idea before you go out on stage. Also, my giant jug. I love my giant jug. And I do a whole bunch of drinking before I start speaking because your mouth gets dry really quickly when you do a lot of speaking. So, warm water, avoid ice water. And I've already said nuts. You needed three? I can only come up with two.
Um, Milk? Question mark?
Milk. I'm not a big milk drinker anyway, but I have heard that for some people it's not good. Um, I think it's also a personal choice. I don't know why we would be drinking milk right before we go on stage anyway.
Well, that was the last question slash comment. So I think we can definitely wrap up today.
You
Uh,
never lose people or upset people by giving them time back, especially entrepreneurs.
yeah, I no, you're absolutely correct. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. I hope to see you again on a future webinar or workshop. And I most definitely want to thank Bobbie. I know that everyone is taking away something from today's presentation. So we're just so thankful for you donating your time to SCORE. Thank you.
And thank you for having me.
Okay. All right. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye bye.